Alright, it's time for the Eika guide. And I think Eika has to be right now one of the strongest duelists in the game, and in this video, I'll give you information on her kit, tips, and a couple of little tricks to help you master her. Eika is a character that can only be played on the attacker side. She uses fire to kill enemies and also uses a shotgun to easily gun them down. She also has a really great abilities and her tactical is called Purgatory. She will make a huge fire orb that can greatly increase your damage. There are some conditions to this ability though. The orb will not last if there are no enemies inside of it and will just disappear giving you a message. It would also not increase your damage if you or the enemy are not inside the orb, so make sure you're inside the orb when you use it. There are some good things about it though. The orb can deal a good amount of damage if the enemy leaves the orb when it's fully active, and trust me, it helps a lot. This skill has a cooldown of 25 seconds, and when you use it, you will not be able to shoot for about a second, so be careful when you use it. That's technically not all to her tactical because of her passive, which increases the damage of her ability and more. Eika's tactical is called SOL Battery. When Eika deals damage to anything that takes damage with her gun, the heat bar will also fill up. You can use her shotgun or secondary, but make sure you use an actual gun, it will not work with the sword. The passive only works when the heat bar is fully charged, and when fully charged, the next ability, whether it's her ultimate or tactical, will go from red to blue fire. The blue fire greatly increases her damage when enemies leave the fire orb, and increases the damage to people in paper mode inside her orb. The shotgun damage does not increase whether it's blue or red though, so keep that in mind. The heat bar does drain its heat after some time of not hitting anything, but the bar can stop once you deal any type of damage for about 10 seconds. Next up is her ultimate, and holy crap, I love this one. Her ultimate is called Firestorm. When Eika activates her ultimate, she will put her gun away and throw fire tornadoes upon shooting. Enemies hit by the tornado will fly upwards into paper mode and take a lot of damage depending on how long they are in the tornado. When the fire is red, it does about 50 damage, and when it's blue, it does about 100. Eika has 3 charges of this ultimate, so you can spam it or save it for later in that same round, but if you activate it, you will lose it next round, so make sure to know when you use it. If your heat bar is filled up, the tornado will go from red to blue, which will increase the damage of a tornado by a lot, and also increase the size of the tornado by a lot, making it easier to hit the enemies, and holy, you will see a massive difference in the real game. Next up, we have her awakenings, and her first one is called Pyro Strings. When enemies go paper mode inside her fire orb, the enemies will take damage until they exit paper mode. This one seems really simple, but this is what makes her ability really great because it forces the enemy to fight you instead of going paper mode, and you'll have the upper hand. Her next awakening is called the Enroaching Cage. When Eika fire orb fully forms, it will shrink over time until it becomes a small orb. Now this one may also seem really simple, but holy crap, every time I have this awakening, I accidentally get a kill because it's just free damage to the enemies. The only downside is that you're more unlikely to be inside the orb with the enemy, but you still get the extra damage, so I kinda think it's worth it. Her final awakening is called the Flame of Life. When Eika's heat bar is filled up and she uses any type of ability, she will immediately gain 100 HP. If her heat bar is slowly draining though, she will heal over time until the heat bar disappears. This awakening is also really great, but later on in the video I'll explain which one is better and why. Now we're moving on to her gun upgrades. For her core upgrade, I say go bullet increase as it'll make a lot more of your bullets hit and increase damage overall. The single shot one is not great in my opinion. I have never seen anyone use it before, so I don't recommend it. For a critical hit upgrade, I say Strinova damage since enemies tend to naturally go in paper mode in a fight and the damage increase is kinda noticeable. The effective range is kinda useless unless you have the single shot upgrade, which is already kinda bad, and even without the single shot, only 1 or 2 bullets will hit and deal like 10 damage. For her ammo upgrade, I say this kinda up to you. I mainly use reload speed since I like getting back in a fight a lot faster, but the extra 4 bullets are not something you should sleep on and can come in handy at times. For her function upgrade, I say spread control as the sprint speed isn't super needed for Eika, and spread control makes a lot more of the shots hit, which means more damage overall. For her tactical upgrade, I say if you use the second awakening, go for her cooldown as the duration isn't really helping because the orb shrinks over time with that awakening. If you choose the third awakening, then it's kinda up to you as the duration can help stop fights and pushes, while cooldown can make her third awakening work more. But the cooldown doesn't really correlate with any type of awakening besides the first one, but that's kind of a if they go paper mode. Her passive upgrade increases her heat bar buildup by 50%, which is actually noticeable. So don't sleep on this upgrade at all, and I recommend you get it kinda early on in the game. For shield upgrades, go light over heavy because heavy just kinda sucks on Eika completely. And since you're gonna be quite close, you're gonna take some damage that you will need to heal quickly. For survivability, I say go 15% speed increase, but only if you're confident in your fights and pushes. Because of how I play Eika, I continue to keep moving and not stop, which is why I use the 15% paper speed increase. If you like to play really slow and with your team, then 25% reduction is for you. Both of the upgrades are really good, but they really depend on your playstyle. Now that we're done talking about her abilities, I'm gonna talk about when should you use her abilities. For Eika's tactical, if you're pushing enemies, almost always use it in a close fight unless the enemy is running away, because the flame will immediately die out if there's no enemies inside of it, making it a waste of your ability. You should also slowly build up your heat for more damage, but the risk is a lot higher here, but the reward is also really high. But I say only do this if you have enemies like Yvette or Michelle on the enemy team, and maybe even Galatea since they all have deployables that take damage. You can also play her tactical just for damage, which is also kind of risky unless you have her second awakening, but I suggest you only use it when her heat bar is all the way filled up and when you know an enemy is low and will get knocked or killed by it. For her ultimate, the best time to use it is in small areas or corridors, such as this area in Kachi block, as a lot of the times enemies will sometimes get stuck on the ceilings and they won't be able to move or do anything, giving you a free kill most of the times. You also get to charge your heat bar again when you do it, which is like just overpowered. Another thing to remember is that her spread gets really bad after her third shot. So try to ADS or at least shoulder aim on enemies with your ult. And just because Aika has a shotgun doesn't mean you shouldn't help your teammates in a far range fight. If you can, just shoot at the enemies even if you're far just to help out your teammates. Sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't, but you still should just take that chance. Now you're probably wondering, what kind of maps is Aika good on? Aika is really great on almost all the maps in my opinion, except for one, which can easily be fixed, which is Windy Town. Since that map has too many open spaces for her to play, it's safe. But if you have Fragrance on your team, I find Windy Town to be actually really great for Aika. You can also try playing Flank on this map, but it'll still be a little hard to do. For her best map, maps like Kachi Block and 404 Base are her best maps because the sites are small and there are a lot of walls and objects that help you play close and safely to the enemy. Just make sure to get control of important spots in the map if you do play Aika, because she will struggle if you don't get control of these spots. Surprisingly, Zone 88 is pretty good for Aika if you take the site quickly because she's just great at controlling areas, and specifically these two areas on this map. Her ult is also pretty good here because the ceilings are really low, so you get free kills sometimes. On this map Cosmetics, I find it really hard to play on A site since this is way too open for me to do anything. On B site though, there are a lot of walls and objects that make it easy to get close to the enemies, so focus on B site if you play her on Cosmetics. You can try playing the teleports, but it's also kind of hard to work around with it, so it's kind of up to you how you want to play. For the rest of the maps, she's also good on them. She doesn't really have a bad map, she just instead has to play differently, which varies player to player, so if you play really aggressive, you might not struggle on any map, but if you play really defensively, maybe some maps are not for you. Next, I'm going on to her weaknesses, and Aika has some pretty bad weaknesses, and you should try to work around them. Her one main weakness is her damage. She is not really great if your enemy is about 15 meters away from you, since you'll be dealing so little damage. You're kind of forced to ADS. If you're that far away from an enemy or you're just fighting, just try making the enemy get closer to you, or you try to get closer to them, so you have the advantage. Another weakness is that her tactical has a lot of conditions, which makes it really hard to play. Only use her ability if you have a great feeling it will go through. If you miss, that's a lot less DPS and you may struggle quite a bit, and you'll have to wait another 20 or 25 seconds. Another big one is that you need to know when to aim. When I see people play Aika, they tend to only hit fire and it hit absolutely nothing, which is not really a great way to play Aika since every shot increases her spread drastically, so try to learn how to shoulder aim or ADS while moving at the same time. Aika does have really good strength. One big one is that anything that takes damage, such as Yvette's bear, will charge up your heat bar, so take advantage of that if you can. Her 50% heat bar buff will play a huge part in this too, so take full advantage of this. Another huge strength is that her fire orb goes to walls. If you see a group of enemies, you can go for the tactical and spray the heck out of them, and if you have her second awakening, you'll get some juicy damage from that, especially when the fire is blue. Now we're gonna move on to her playstyle. There are many ways to play Aika, but I'll explain how I play her myself. I play Aika extremely aggressive because she excels in close range fights, and playing aggressive allows me to play close. Playing close also lets me use my ability to its full potential and gives me a lot of kills. If you're playing in a bigger map, or sometimes in a match where you're struggling on, I tend to flank or clear a lot on my own so I can have control of an area early on for the easy win. If you do this, just make sure your team is distracting the enemies, you don't want to get caught yourself and lose the round. Aika's heat bar is probably one of the most important things in her kit for extra damage. Try peeking really fast to keep the heat bar up. Just doing 1 damage is enough for her to stay for an extra 10 seconds, so take advantage of the duration. This is my personal playstyle, but I tend to go after snipers and duelists rather than controllers or characters with SMGs, as for some reason I struggle killing them because they can out DPS me, and their kit makes it a lot harder for them to get killed or for me to push them, especially Madalena and Audrey. If you're wondering what kind of grenades are great for Aika, I almost run the frag grenade and the heal grenade. You can also use a tornado grenade if you want to run her third awakening, but she also has a tornado grenade as her ultimate. You can also run concussives, but I find it a little hard to use with Aika since I already play really close with Aika, and getting in a good position to throw concussives is kind of difficult. Slow grenades also work, but it kind of makes the enemy want to run away, so I don't really use it too much. But this is how I play her. You don't have to play her like I do, but if you want to play her, then take my advice. The final thing I'm going to be covering is her best comps. I have not done this in any other guide, but I'll just give you the best 2 comps in my opinion with Aika, and this will only include 3 characters per comp. Her first one is Aika, Fragrance, and Ming. This comp is really great for open maps and fast plays, and the extra rate of fire that Fragrance gives is actually kind of insane. I normally run Fragrance on her second awakening, and holy crap, it's really fun seeing enemies getting absolutely beamed. Doesn't always work, but it's pretty fun. Ming plays an important part as she can slow enemies with her plasma orb, and along with Fragrance speed boost, you can easily get that kill with Ming. Her second comp is Aika, Meredith, and Luwin. This comp might seem a little off of Eika here, but Luwin's scan is really great for information and also allows you to know if sites are safe to push. Meredith can also use her stance to slow down enemies, allowing you to beam enemies or use her tactical abilities on the enemies. And since Eika has a shotgun, she does a lot of damage instantly and her fire orb limits where the enemies can go. This comp can work with other duelists, but I find it a lot better with Eika and me. This comp is really great for maps with a lot of cover such as 404 base and Kachi blocks. It's a lot of tight areas. Now this is the end of the Eika guide. Next guide will be Fuchsia, so be ready for that. I need to play Fuchsia a little more to have a better guide for her. I know it changed the rankings a lot in the guides, but Eika might be the top 2 best duelists in certain maps. But it is also really just map dependent, simply because of how much damage she does. I do still think Baimo is the strongest duelist in the game for obvious reasons, and I will always hate him. I also think she's super fun to play because characters with fire are always my favorite, such as Scorpion. But yeah, that's the end of the guide. If you guys want more guides, subscribe, leave a like, and comment below any type of other content I should make, and I might try it out. But yeah, bye guys.